Hi everyone, welcome to another session of Training Tips with Ward. In this particular video, what I would like to do is deal with sits, specifically crooked sits, how to avoid them and how to fix them once they occur. But before I go into that, let's step back for a moment and think about how dogs learn. Dogs learn through associations and consequences. Associations, for example, when we use click and treat or a marker and a reward. Initially, we build up an association between the marker and the reward, a technique that is often referred to as charging the marker. In addition to that, they learn through consequences, so associations and consequences. If we ask a dog to sit and he sits and he gets a reward for that, either a release to a ball or a treat, there's been an association that has developed between the behavior and the consequence of the behavior. Moving on from that, I like to think of a behavior really, training a behavior really composed of 3 steps. Get it, mark it, and reward it. For the dog to learn the behavior, we must first get it, hence the steps, the 3 steps: get it, mark it, and reward it. And finally, a couple of points that I feel are particularly important in dealing with crooked sits. A dog will always return to the position from whence the payoff came. A dog will always return to the position from whence the payoff came. And secondly, if a particular behavior remains unrewarded, it will fade. In other words, a behavior that isn't rewarded is going to fade. Those are 2 very important principles when considering crooked sits and fixing crooked sits. Front, sit. Okay, so one of the first things that we're always faced to deal with is the crooked sit. Now, often you can't get a sit that's coming in crooked and fix it or stop it before it actually occurs. So in this particular sequence, let's pretend that a crooked sit has occurred. What I do is take and put a treat in my mouth, and then turn slightly, making sure the dog stays in position. Then I'm going to step back with my left foot, my left leg, and I'm going to look at my left foot as it moves back, and I'm going to keep my right foot or my right leg stationary. This is to block any forward movement that is crooked and to make the dog swing his rear around. Remember what I said before, the 3 steps are get it, mark it, and reward it. So let's just try that. Front. Yes. Stay. Taking that then from the other side, stay. Pretending I have a crooked sit here. Front. Back. And come on. Front. Yes. Now in this case, I mark it and I reward it. I'll do that one more time from the other side, the other leg. Stay. So we've got a crooked sit. Front. Sit. Front. Attaboy. Come on. Good boy. Stay. So I'm going to step back with my right foot this time, block with my left foot. Front. Yes. We can do that on a larger scale or with more distance by doing the following. Sit. Sit back. Stay. Stay. Come. And doing that again. Come on. This time remembering my marker. Stay. Doing it from the other side. Come. Yes. Come on back. Let's go back. Sit. Stay. Come. Yes. So another very effective way of working on fronts is with a turn away just before the dog arrives to front you. That makes the dog watch your body, watch what you're doing, and he has to adjust. It's not simply a case of trying to find you when you're standing still. And it looks something like this. Come. Yes. Let's do that again. Come on. Heel. Yeah, that's it. Stay. Come. Stay. Good boy. And one more time going the other way. Sit. Stay. Come. Yes. Let's do that again. Heel. Stay. Come. Yes. Sit. So you'll notice in that instance, I wasn't using my left leg to block. I'm simply turning on the spot. So the dog has progressed from having a blocker to prevent him from coming in at an angle to the point where he's learned to move his rear end around. Again, you've seen Betsy Scapicio demonstrate the use of the rods on fronts. One of the things we can do on those recalls that are at an angle, as occur in Canada, is the following. Come, block it, and get him to swing. Yes. Showing that again. Come on. Sit. Stay. So, from the other side. Come. Yes. And of course we can do it without turning, simply setting ourselves up, sit, stay. And using the rods as guides, I'll set up so that I'm turned this way. Come. He swings his rear and sits. Good guy. Yeah, good guy. Come on. Let's do it again. Come on. Over here. Sit. Stay. Come. Yes. Okay, good guy. That's a good guy. So those are a few things that you can do on fronts. Now, I've previously discussed the rods, I've discussed side passing, I've discussed the offset H and the long rectangle and so on. So there are a number of different techniques. Those happen to be ones that you can use shortly before going into the ring. What I'd like to talk about now are the sits that we tend to get on finishes. In other words, crooked sits on finishes, butt out, butt in, and whatnot. Well, first of all, let's take a quick look at what the finish is and how the dog is trying to find his position. I'd like to have you think of a finish position as being on a line that is an arc from the middle of my back, around my hip, equidistant all the way to here on the front. Now the point is, we want the dog to sit somewhere on that arc. And the point that we want the dog to sit is going to be right opposite my left leg, right here. Now in order to get that, it's necessary to have some sort of focal point for the dog to mark and be able to guide himself by. So in my case, I use my wristwatch or my wrist or my hand, and I leave my hand down in the down position so that it makes it easier for him to figure out where he is, rather than looking all the way up here to my shoulder or an armband or whatever. In doing that, I then have my third finger on the seam of my jeans. That's the dog's focal point. If I'm working him on a finish, I want him to go around me. If it's an around finish, I do both finishes, by the way, arounds and swings. But if it's an around finish, first of all, let's pretend that it, or let's say that it is. I'm going to ask my dog to come around my body to this point. Finish. Heel. Good boy. And I'm going to offer him a treat right off my wristwatch. So let's do that again. Heel, sit. So he's checked my wristwatch. That's where he's going to get the treat. That's the way that I initially teach him his focal point. Heel, sit, stay, sit, good boy, just like that. Let's do that again. Sit, stay. As time passes and the dog learns where the finish position is, I'll then switch from giving him a treat at my wristwatch, his focal point, to yes. So as the dog progresses and learns the focal point, come in, sit. As the dog progressively learns the focal point, I then start offering the treat a little differently. Yes, I mark it and I reward, but I turn his head and reward him so that his head is in the straight forward position. Sit. I want you to watch what would happen if I were rewarding him across my body and the position of his head. Yes. That meant that the head, the dog's head, was turned more in front of me. And what this does is it pulls the dog's body around. You remember in a previous video, I talked about steering the position of the rear end by the position of the head. And so on finishes at this stage, I always treat after the sit is marked and by moving my wrist over top of the muzzle. Yes. Straight head and treat. On the other side, on a closed finish, yes. Straight head. A dog will always return to the position from whence the payoff came. Front. Yes. Now, another important point on this is that the position of your left arm must remain consistent. You cannot, in one instance, have the arm forward like this and back like that. Even though those are natural hanging positions, if you move your arm, your dog will move on either forward or hold back, and he'll be on that arc that I talked about. Now, if, for example, he come, sit. I'm going to, for an example, I'm going to hold my arm my left arm a little bit ahead here, and he should sit butt out, heel. And of course he did. Now, if I take and hold my arm back and not as far forward, he'll sit butt in. Heel. Which he did. So you can see the effect of the left arm position on how your finish ends up, whether you have a straight sit or a crooked sit. This is a particularly important thing to remember when you're working finishes. So those are a few tips today to remember when you're working fronts and finishes. You may not always be able to stop a dog or have a dog take the position that you want, in which case you're starting from a dog sitting crooked and turning, and the dog is brought into the position that you want. In other words, get what you want, get the position you want, mark it, and reward it. Thanks very much. Hope you enjoy this video. Have fun training your dogs.